Reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
You're listening to the Happy Hearthstone. This show is brought to you by Doghouse Systems. Choose your weapon with Doghouse Systems. By Audible. Get your free audiobook and your free trial today. By GoDaddy. Put your website to work while you play. If you'd like to directly support this show and the nice people who make it, you can find more information at gamediplomat.com/donate. Hello and welcome to episode 41 of the Happy Hearthstone podcast, the longest running Hearthstone podcast in the history of space and time and cards. I'm your host, Josh Augustine, and this week I'm joined by two incredible guests I'm super excited about, the brains behind the cards we all love, two Hearthstone developers straight from Blizzard HQ, senior game designer Ben Brode.
Hello!
Hello, and senior game designer Mike Donais.
Hello!
I am so happy you guys are here. Thank you for joining us. Did I get your titles and names right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I'm not sure if you've listened to the show before, but one tradition we have here is that we start every episode by the host going around saying one thing we're happy about. So it is the Happy Hearthstone, so we like to keep it positive. So I'll go first, just so I set the bar. You know, I'm actually super happy that I opened Micro Machine in my very first Gnomes vs. Goblins pack. It was also one of my favorite childhood toys, and I think it's actually a really good card. I've been having fun with it.
Awesome. We have a designer on the Hearthstone team who's so young that he did not get the reference.
What?
It was very disappointing.
Man, that's gotta make you feel old. Like I thought everyone knew Micro Machines.
Exactly.
Wow.
But like flavor text is references the old commercial, and he was like, I don't understand this flavor text. I was like, oh damn it.
Come on. Well, now you just gotta litter his desk with some Micro Machines. I actually still have two from when I was about like 6 years old that have actually survived that are on my office desk.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's just nice because when you're in thought, you need to think about something, you just drive the car around. It's so good. All right, so Ben, so what are you happy about?
Well, I'm super happy about launching Hearthstone's first expansion, which we just did this week, which is it's awesome.
Yeah, Mike, he just stole yours, buddy. You're gonna have to come up with something else.
Yeah, I'm obviously very happy that I get to finally play the GVG cards. I've been waiting so long. It's really great, and I'm also really happy about our future as Hearthstone. This is our first big expansion. It's done so well. I feel like we're on a good path.
Yeah, it's got to make you feel good seeing all the huge reaction, excitement. Like, I don't think I've talked with anybody that, even like the worst forum trolls, right? They've been like, oh, this expansion's terrible. I don't like all these new cards. Like, everyone seems super excited about it.
Yeah, super fun.
All right, so obviously the big news that came out this week, Goblins vs. Gnomes came out. That's what we're talking about. 123 new collectible cards, tons of awesome new mechanics, voiceovers. That's what we're going to talk about today, so let's jump into some questions. So we saw some fairly significant shifts in the meta when just the Naxxramas cards were added into the mix. And we're starting to see some changes with Goblins vs. Gnomes that's out. How permanent of a change are you expecting to see when the dust kind of settles and people kind of pick their new decks?
It's really hard to tell in advance, but it looks like it's going to be pretty significant. A lot of new decks have shown up, whole new archetypes. A lot of the old decks are still there with just minor changes too. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be a significant change. I'm very happy with how much everything's changing.
Is that kind of the most exciting part of this launch for you, is to start seeing what people start experimenting with and coming up with deck ideas?
Yeah, I really love when there's a whole new deck getting played and people trying the mech deck in each class to see like, oh, how does mech work in Shaman? How does mech work in Mage? And trying to figure out the coolest version and watching them, like how they think and what decisions they make and like, oh, I really like this card. Oh, this card's now I think it's terrible. Now I try this card. I really like this card suddenly. That's really fun.
Yeah, is there any sort of deck archetype you've seen show up that you weren't expecting, or even during playtesting really surprised you when someone internally figured it out?
Let me think about that. Most of the decks are ones that we tried. We spent a lot of time sort of like going through each card and saying, what deck types could this card spawn? What deck types could this card spawn? So I think so far we've captured all the major categories, but there's still a lot of time. People are doing the surface level deck building still. Like a month or two from now, I think you'll see more of the more hidden deck types and the more, complex ones.
So what you're saying is you've got like some like secret decks that we don't even know about that we're gonna...
Absolutely, really good ones too.
Oh, what? Man, that is you tease. So with a lot of the Naxxramas cards, I'm kind of pointing to that just because that's the other kind of big card release. It felt like a lot of the Naxxramas cards were kind of designed to give more answers against aggro decks. Did you have any other kind of big picture goals with this expansion for how you may want to shift the meta at all?
Yeah, one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure the games were, if you played hundreds of games, they would still be very different. And we accomplished that really well with things like the shredders, the piloted shredders, because even if you play 100 games with your piloted shredders in your deck, the games are still going to be different, and the transmogrifiers and unstable portals, things like that. So you can just sit and play Hearthstone all day long like I do and have tons of fun still.
That's how you make the game, right? You just play it constantly.
Yeah, basically.
So how do you decide when you're kind of approaching these new cards and approaching class cards, how do you decide what a class like needs when giving them a new card? For example, we got a lot of questions about specific class legendaries, like, oh, why did Warlock get this? Why did Hunter get this? Could you just kind of walk us through the process of like, how do you pick, Mal'Ganis as the route you wanted to take for Warlock in this expansion?
Sometimes we're looking to focus on a theme that a class gets, like Mal'Ganis, we wanted to push their demon theme a little bit more because it's not really fleshed out yet. And then for Druid, we wanted to introduce a new Beast Matters theme. It's like, oh, here's our first step. Just like we had, one or two Demon Matters at the very beginning for Warlock, now you've got one Beast Matters for Druid. And over time, it'll evolve into a more rich deck. So that's one of the things we think about. Another thing we think about is, like, what does this class need? Like, Hunter doesn't have any late game decks. And then we counter that with, like, should Hunter have a late game deck? We want to make sure that just because a class like Hunter has no healing, should Hunter have healing? No, Hunter should never have healing. So we don't give them what they need, we give them what they deserve.
You're a fair judge. Interesting. Okay. So I mean, with the expansion, right? There's a lot of really cool Warcraft lore, obviously from the Warcraft RTSs and also from World of Warcraft that you could have pulled from. Why goblins and gnomes as the focus of this first release?
Goblins and gnomes are awesome.
I won't argue that.
we were all sitting around. This is how we come up with expansion ideas. We sit around a whiteboard and just kind of pitch stuff. People yell out, "Oh, what about this? What about this?" And the moment somebody yelled out "Goblins versus Gnomes," and I wrote it on the whiteboard, I looked over at Eric Dodds, and his face just lit up, and I was like, "You can stop writing stuff on the whiteboard right now, because I feel like this is absolutely what we're going to do for our first expansion." Just from that one moment, there was this passion trajectory towards this idea, and we even kept the name that we came up with in that pitch meeting, Goblins versus Gnomes, and just went nuts on it.
That's really cool. I mean, that's got to make it more exciting too when you're thinking about cards when you're that like excited about the concept.
Yes, and it was really exciting for a couple of reasons. One, we love the stuff that's in World of Warcraft. Eric Dodds, the game director, actually designed a lot of the old Goblin and Gnomish engineering stuff in World of Warcraft. He was the first designer on World of Warcraft.
Oh, wow.
And so, it's a lot of his kind of favorite work that he's done in the past. And so we got to kind of represent some of that in Hearthstone, and then also push kind of the IP of the engineering things that Goblins and Gnomes make in kind of new directions. We invented a lot of new types of mechs. So it was fun both to be nostalgic about the mechs and also push the IP forward in a new way, which Hearthstone hasn't really done before.
Yeah, that's really cool. Can you tell us like any sort of fun development stories with those cards and kind of as you start experimenting with them, when you tried certain things, or how some of them changed?
I thought you might ask something like this, and so I went back to look at our old sheet right before we started talking to you, and most of the stuff that we cut is the boring stuff. We often will start pitching ideas, and we'll have an idea and say, oh, what about this? And then people just don't get excited about it, and so we go back to the drawing board, and someone sends out an email with 10 ideas and most of those aren't very good. But this process over time gets us to a space where we feel really good about every card in the set. I know you were talking a little bit about some of the things we were trying early on.
Yeah, yeah. Part of it is like we'll put in some exciting ideas and some, what we think are good ideas maybe. And whenever we see the exciting ideas, like, well, let's keep this one. And then stuff like we had a spell in Shaman, which started off as all your mechs and totems, it was Awaken. All your mechs and totems get +1/+1. And that was kind of cool, but it gave a little bit of unclarity because you don't know if you should be building the totem deck or the mech deck. And it was still a pretty good design, but then we came up with the Shaman weapon, and we liked the Shaman weapon more because it really felt more active and gave you more clear mech build-around direction. So that's how that card evolved, as one example.
We also will try a lot of different themes for an expansion. So for Goblins vs. Gnomes, we tried out spare parts, we tried out mechs, but we also had a couple other themes that we threw into the set, and we just try it all, and then the ones that we're most excited about, the ones that fit best, we kind of double down on those and scale back on themes that we felt like weren't a great fit for the expansion. Once upon a time, we actually had a lot of cards like Flame Leviathan. It was kind of a sub-theme in the set. We felt like it just wasn't a good fit for Goblins vs. Gnomes, so we scaled back all the way down to just one legendary to make it feel unique and special, and that kind of process of pruning and testing is really important to coming up with something awesome.
Yeah. All right, so do you remember when I said we had one tradition on this show?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I actually lied to you guys. We have two, and the second one is that the guest host sings the Card of the Week theme song before we go into the Card of the Week. And I would love to use Flame Leviathan as the Card of the Week, but I need one of you guys to sing the Card of the Week song, which can be anything you want. It just has to contain the words Card of the Week.
Okay, great. When do we sing it?
Hey, whenever you're ready.
All right. It's the Card of the Week.
Love it. All right. So the Card of the Week is Flame Leviathan. It is a 7-cost, 7/7, and it is obviously a minion. And when it has text, when you draw this, deal 2 damage to all characters. All right, so this is crazy, right? Because this is one of the only cards that does stuff when you draw it. It also has awesome visuals. So what do you guys think? What kind of deck would you put this in? This is very clearly like a late game control deck card, right?
Yeah, it's designed for mage decks that don't run a lot of minions, that have a lot of control. They want to spend no mana at all to destroy their opponent's minions. Very handy when it works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
This card is interesting because we had a bunch of cards originally that said when you draw this trigger, and we were having trouble getting them to be fun because whenever you have something that costs no mana but has an effect on the game, it's pretty dangerous, and your opponent feels like, oh my god, I can't believe he just did that, and now he's taking his full turn. Yeah. So we actually trimmed it down to 1 card, and we figured we'll try that card out, and we'll think about it some more, and then we'll see what happens. This is the same thing that we did with Web Spinner originally. Web Spinner was our first try at like, hey, let's see what people think about, this sort of randomly pulling a card into their hand from outside the game and see if people like it or not. And people loved Web Spinner. It was one of their favorite cards in Nax, and they loved the Web Spinner challenge. So we did a bit more of that with Unstable Portal and Transmogrifier and the Shredders because it worked out so well. So we're trying again, and if it works out, maybe we'll have more of these in the future. Bolvar's another experiment like that, where he does something completely different, and maybe if it works out, we'll do more in the future.
Yeah, and if nothing else, this card has some of the best golden art I have seen. It is so cool.
Yeah, it does.
Like the speed lines, then the cannon fires, flame coming out the back. It is epic.
Yeah, the golds in this set are really astonishingly good. The bar was certainly raised, I think.
Yeah, it's it's inspiring and depressing at the same time because it's like, oh man, now I feel like I have to get all of them because before I could pick and choose. Okay, this one's, oh, I love this gold I'll buy this one. But now it's like I look at all of them like, oh, I need that one. Oh, I need that one. Oh, I need that one. Oh, I need that one.
Here's a tip for you. Just craft golden unstable portals, and then every time you get a minion, it'll be golden. You get to see them all eventually.
Oh, there we go. I like it. See that? Oh, see that? I used a similar strategy early on before I had a lot of cards when I just used the Faceless Manipulator to like steal their golden cards.
There you go. Yeah, golden thought steal.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at a couple more questions. So I'm curious why we see a lot of mech synergy in this set, but not necessarily goblin or gnome racial synergy. I mean, it is goblins versus gnomes after all. Are we going to see some epic showdowns where there's like a goblin deck or a gnome deck, or you'd rather keep it kind of more neutral?
We could see people build decks specifically to highlight those types of cards, but mostly that's just a flavor thing. Mm-hmm. We felt like, at least for this set, focusing on one really exciting new minion type would work best for us, and the mechs are really exciting. So the main theme of these two guys fighting is there to support the idea that they're building these incredible mechs to do battle for them, but we don't have any official in-game things pushing us towards the battle of goblins versus gnomes.
Okay, yeah.
Really, it's a friendly battle. They're battling at the...
Yeah, let's be honest. Goblins and gnomes probably would make their minions fight for them rather than fight directly. They make their robots. All right, so 2 lighthearted questions for you guys. If you had to be a goblin or a gnome in real life, which would you pick?
Gnome.
Why?
Goblin. It's not even close.
For me, it's the VO. I loved playing a gnome warrior in World of Warcraft when you try and use an ability and you don't have enough rage, and they go, "I'm not angry enough." It's just classic. I love it.
That was incredibly done. Are you sure you're not a gnome in real life? That was pretty good.
I'm pretty sure.
I wish I was.
Yeah, for me, it's an easy answer. Also, Horde is just better than Alliance.
I can't argue that either. All right, so if you had to have one of them as a best friend, which one would you do? The same answers?
No, absolutely not. I would prefer a goblin. Goblins blow you up, but gnomes, you wish they had only blown you up.
Yeah, you don't want to be a chicken the rest of your life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I guess goblin.
All right, sticking with the Horde. All right, so actually, Ben, that reminds me, you did some of the voices for the original cards, didn't you?
I did not.
Oh, you didn't?
But I appreciate that you think I did.
Okay, because I was going to ask if you guys did any voices for this expansion, but no?
Only voice I've ever done is for in Encourage. It's not any actual lines. The prophets scare him when he dies. It's my gurgling mixed with a pig squeal.
What? So how did you get identified as the guy that would be the best to make a gurgling with a pig squeal?
I think at the time I was sitting next to the sound guys in the hall, and somebody popped out of their office and said, "Hey, can you come make some noises?" And I said, "Sure." So I got the mic and I went. That's it.
Well, hey, it could be your claim to fame.
It is.
So actually, along those lines, I gotta ask, have you guys ever gotten recognized? This is probably more for Ben Brode, who's been there longer and been on stage. Have you ever gotten recognized outside the office or conventions, kind of as Ben Brode, the Hearthstone dev?
It happened for the first time just 2 weeks ago, I think.
What? Was it just another player? Did they like stalk you around the store for a while?
Yeah, we were eating in the same restaurant, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, are you Ben Brode?" And I was like, I am Ben Brode. And he said he loved Hearthstone. It was really cool. I'd never been recognized as me before.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I assume you've seen people playing Hearthstone in public.
Oh yeah, I've had long conversations with people who did not realize that I worked on Hearthstone, trying to explain the game to me. At one point, I was talking to somebody who was explaining he was just like, "Oh, I'm playing this new game. Let me tell you all about it." And he explained the game a little bit wrong. He said, "Oh, you randomly get the coin sometimes at the beginning of the game." And I was like, "Are you sure it's random?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely random." So I went back to the office and I added the VO line that says, "You're going second, so you get the coin. Use it wisely."
Perfect. Okay. It's like spontaneous play testing out in the street.
Exactly.
I mean, it's got to be tempting to like just lean over and say like, "Hey, I made that game, doesn't it?"
Yeah, I don't want to, it's a little weird, I guess.
All right, you were more humble than me, Ben. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could resist it. Yeah, I mean, so one thing that always kind of amazes me is just how many of my non-gamer quote-unquote friends have jumped into Hearthstone and loved it. What's like the kind of most extreme example you guys have heard? Because I assume people are like writing you guys letters or Twitter messages about like someone that has never, their 99-year-old grandma that has never played a game picked up Hearthstone. Have you heard any like crazy stories like that?
Yeah, actually, the first story was right at the very beginning. We had just announced Hearthstone. We were at PAX East showing it off for the first time, and somebody who had come to PAX East, I think with her son, or maybe to play board games. She was there, and she came up to me after she played. She said, "Look, this is the first video game I've ever played, and I loved it. I had a great time." That was an encouraging moment for us because the whole goal the whole time making Hearthstone was to make it very accessible, and make it a really deep game, and that felt like, okay, we may have succeeded here at the accessibility front. This is really exciting.
Yeah, that's incredible. Man, my wife who plays games and stuff still has a hard time picking up new games. That's incredible. First video game ever. Wow.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
All right, so I got two questions from the community that got sent in, and then I think we'll close it on out if that works for you guys.
Great.
All right, so Ryan wrote in and wanted to ask what you guys thought about a quote-unquote unsilence effect, something that kind of removes the silence and puts the buffs and text back onto a card.
Unsilence. That's cool. That seems cool. One of the things that we think about when talking about new mechanics and stuff is the amount of memorization that you would have to do to take an effect for certain effects. Mm-hmm. This feels like either you would need to kind of memorize what buffs had been on previously, or we would need to show you everything that had been silenced off, probably all the time when you mouse over a guy. I don't know that that's a problem necessarily, but it's something that we think about when we're analyzing card effects.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I like that it's a counter to silence, because one of the things that is important when designing cards is making sure you have the tools to deal with a mechanic if it gets to be kind of pervasive. So, we want to make sure that, for example, Little Exorcist is a little bit of a counter to Death Rattle decks. If they become very pervasive, you can put that in your deck and feel really good about it. Even Hungry Crab is good against Murlocs if it becomes endemic. So a counter to silence effects that become very, very common. Although I would say that things like Chillwind Yeti is almost a counter to silence effects on its own. Cards like that, if you feel like you're facing a lot of silence, you could put Battlecry cards and vanilla cards in your deck to kind of make those cards not as good for your opponent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, last question. Probiont wanted to know and how many expansions ahead you guys are working on.
We have a pretty big picture of where we think we want Hearthstone to go. But one of the things that we're trying to do is really stay nimble and listen to player feedback and watch what happens with Naxxramas and Goblins versus Gnomes. And we're still kind of in Hearthstone's infancy. This is our first year of launch. This is our first adventure, our first expansion. I think we have a lot of learning to do still. And so while we have big plans and big ideas, we're still at the same time not trying to lock ourselves down to a path before we've done all the learning we need to do.
Yeah, that's really smart. So you can plan ahead, but you can't, make it completely, right?
Certainly we have to start, cruising on something. Yeah. But we want to make sure that we stay nimble and don't get too far ahead of ourselves.
Very cool. Thank you guys very much for coming on the show and talking with us. Where can people contact you on Twitter or Twitch, wherever you guys are.
I'm at BD Brode on Twitter, and you can send me feedback about Goblins vs. Gnomes or anything, and ask me design questions. Hey, Donais, are you on Twitter?
I'm not on Twitter, but I do read all of Reddit every day, multiple times. I love watching to see what our players are doing, what they're thinking about, what they're talking about.
I hope you just mean the Hearthstone subreddit. If you're reading, that is a daunting task.
That's a good point, yeah. I do actually mean Hearthstone.
Okay, phew. All right, good. Otherwise, you had ascended to some sort of amazing speed reader status that the rest of us could only dream of.
And I would probably be crazy.
Yeah, and probably creeped out. There's a lot of weird stuff out there. Alright, so if you want to find more info about the card of the week, anything we talked about today, or anything about Hearthstone in general, you can head on over to the blog, GameDiplomat.com. You'll also find lots of more episodes of our podcasts, like this one, where we do deck battles, where people bring on their favorite decks, where we do guides and reviews about all sorts of things to help you have more fun playing Hearthstone and get a little better at it along the way. Next week on the show, we're probably going to start our review of Gnomes vs. Goblins cards, which I'm super excited about. I don't know the exact format we're going to do with Naxxramas. We did all the cards, but there are a lot of cards in Gnomes vs. Goblins. So we're still going to figure out exactly how we're going to review it, but that'll probably start in the next episode in 2 weeks. And I also have another Blizzard podcast, WoW Pet Battle Crew, which is all about pet battles inside of World of Warcraft. If you're into World of Warcraft at all, you definitely got to check out the new expansion, Warlords of Draenor, which is awesome. And we're going to be talking about all the new pets that are in there next time. We did a preview of all the Warlords of Draenor pets a couple episodes ago, but now we're actually going to start a team and build them just with Warlords of Draenor pets, our favorite pets, and see how they do. So if you're enjoying that expansion, I hope you'll join us. If you want to leave us feedback, we always want to hear what you thought of the show, what you'd like to see on future episodes, anything like that. You can contact us on Google+, just search for Happy Hearthstone. On Twitter, I'm at jaugustine, or you can email me directly. I'm ajosh@outlook.com. Or, leave a comment on the blog, GameDiplomat.com, so we can all talk about it. That'd be great. If you enjoyed the show and you want to support us directly, you absolutely can. Just check out GameDiplomat.com/donation for more information. All right, guys. Thank you again very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
And thanks to everyone listening for visiting the Happy Hearthstone and having a little fun with us. We'll see you next time.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm surprised that Brode didn't beatbox the card of the week song. That's what
Sorry.
It's never too late to beatbox.
Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts at MMOreporter.com or by clicking on any of the links here. And please check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMOreporter. Thanks, everyone, and see you in game.